Today I wanted to discuss catastrophic events and lost knowledge. What are we missing? So I'd consider myself an avocational archaeologist. Now regarding my lecture, I want to start out by covering what I believe took place to our planet and its inhabitants, and then delve into the potential evidence, including this oral and written historical data and the ancient artifacts. So these items being used to show that we have lost knowledge of who or what was here before us. So I want to start off by telling you there seemed to be discrepancies between what my college professors were trying to peddle to me about past cultures and civilizations versus what I was seeing and finding out in the field. And don't get me wrong, some of the techniques used to collect data are solid, and the science as we know today is, well, it's what we need to work with. So I'll include the current science with unorthodox knowledge and data collection. And remember, when dealing with social sciences such as archaeology, much can be left to interpretation. Many current beliefs are subjective data points that some scientists would like you to believe as stone cold hard facts or unchangeable evidence, but that's just not the case. In the past, I've discussed ancient anomalies pointing toward these past worldwide catastrophic events. I explained that through the course of my research and investigations over the years that I've zeroed in on 4 potential catastrophe events that could be seen taking place in historical data, which was both oral and written, or at least permanently documented material. I then covered 2 of those catastrophes. Now, if you had attended or looked at those in the past, one event was when the planet Venus may have wreaked havoc in our solar system, and the other was or were these large solar outbursts, CMEs. The historical data points towards all of these having potentially occurred, and some may have been more than once, obviously. Now, in our modern day civilization, we have historical records going back several thousand years. The further that we go back, the more this data becomes sketchy, difficult to verify what did and did not occur. Here we have the following 8 major disasters modern man has suffered through. If you're looking around through the circle, 1931, those China floods, 4 million dead. Here we have the 5 deadliest known tsunamis. If you start with the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami on the left and then just go around, obviously that 2004 event had the most deaths occurred, and that was within modern times. A lot of us still remember that happening. These are photos or drawings of the aftermath of those tsunamis. So you have to ask yourself, why are we lacking records on ancient past cultures and civilizations that preceded our current civilization on planet Earth? So think about this. In the upper left photo, we have an event. Let's call it event number 1. This event destroys a city. So those in the city are gone, but the entire planet can move on. Then we have event number 2. This event is 1 order of magnitude stronger than that first event, meaning it's 10 times more powerful in destruction. It destroys 10 cities. This is terrible, but as a planet, even as a nation and a state, humanity can recover. Now we have event number 3. It's 2 orders of magnitude stronger than event number 1. That means that 100 cities are destroyed. Picture a supervolcano eruption like what we have here. Devastation is at a global level, catastrophic indeed, but mankind can survive. There would be major differences, however, in how life continued, but we could adapt and continue forward. But now we have event number 4, and this is 3 orders of magnitude stronger than the first event. It's a catastrophic worldwide with worldwide losses. Consider it 1,000+ cities being destroyed, and its effects will take years to level off, returning the Earth's surface to livable levels. In some of these events, or even larger events, it's estimated that 99% of the human population perished. Other species, even possibly those that were human-like, did not survive. They were erased from the historical record. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, where is he getting this data from? So the data comes from ancient indigenous cultures from around the world. We're going to go into specific details and cite several specific sources here soon. This timeline is during the current known and accepted occupation of the species Homo sapiens. Notice the Archaic period is on the far left, present day on the right, with that blue box representing time that we have historical records for. Now, many of those records are hazy. Notice how small of a space it occupies on the timeline. Now notice I've included dates showing major period change events, most relating to a physical Earth change. The dates shown are BP, meaning before present. January 1, 1950 is the commencement date for this measurement of time. This also walks a path along that radiocarbon dating that starts in this era and takes into consideration atomic bombs that were detonated in the atmosphere. If you also look, you'll see these Heinrich events listed. So a Heinrich event is a natural phenomenon in which large groups of icebergs, they break off from glaciers and traverse the North Atlantic. It was first described by this marine geologist named Hartmut Heinrich, and they occurred during 5 of these last 7 glacial periods over the past 64,000 years. In a past lecture, I discussed the changing of the world symbol found in petroglyphs in detail, and that they showed this world change happening because of a major catastrophic event occurring. This symbol is what the ancient indigenous people used to record an event of this magnitude. So currently we believe that the tilt of the Earth's polar axis remains constant, but describes a circular path in space during a period known as the Great Year or precession of the equinoxes. Remember it as the observable phenomena of the rotation of the heavens. This time period is about 25,800 years. This is a galactic time, and when you look at catastrophes taking place, they seem to fall right around 25,800 years. Then split that in half. 12,900 years, split it again to 6,450 years. We're seeing events occur at these date periods. And this is meaning that something disastrous is taking place in a potential cyclical pattern while Earth, the solar system, and the Milky Way are hurtling through space. So what are we really talking about? We're losing records. History of past human occupation, maybe even other intelligent species occupation of Earth because of these cyclical time period catastrophic events. Every time something bad happens, humanity is plunged into another archaic period, a dark age. Some species, other civilizations, were not so lucky. When you talk about major upheaval geologically and in a catastrophic manner, almost anything on the planet's surface could have easily become lost to future civilizations. Also remember there have been one-off catastrophic events. The blue explosions on the timeline represent potential major catastrophes. Look where they fall on the timeline. I'm showing these 3 because potential evidence still exists for these that have been collected. Now I want to discuss the other 2 potential global catastrophic events which were different from my first lecture or presentation where Venus and those solar outbursts were the excellent culprits in the extinction of so much life on our little planet. Here we have the Hopi Prophecy rock near Orabi, Arizona. This rock art foreshadows an Armageddon type scenario. It most likely is capturing the ancient understanding that we will end the 4th world and begin the 5th world. To do so, we need to cross through great destruction. The ruin or destroyer will come from the southwest sky. Several Hopi leaders state that destruction will be by nuclear arsenal, but I believe the ancient indigenous people meant cosmic destruction or other form of atomic destruction. Let's discuss potential cosmic destruction first. This will be in the form of high energy cosmic rays. This energy will look like a blue-white star, which are in many mythological traditions from cultures all around the world. One other thing too, just real quick, so how the worlds ended before. The first world supposedly ended with fire, second with ice, and the third that we know very well, especially from biblical text, would be the Great Deluge. Some indigenous cultures already put us in the 5th world and say that the original was destroyed by unknown creatures or monsters. When particles in cosmic rays collide with the atoms in the top of the atmosphere, they burst, tearing apart atoms in this violent collision. The particles from the explosion then keep bursting apart other bits of matter. It's like this snowball chain reaction. This is a rendering by NASA of high-energy cosmic rays. Scientists hope to one day better pinpoint where in the sky they come from. Every square kilometer of Earth only sees about one of these particles per century. Supposedly, that's what they say. We believe these come from starburst galaxies, but what if all galaxies act this way, releasing massive amounts of these particles all at once in a central explosion, and it's repeated around the same time period as the galaxy continues to hurtle through space? They are so powerful that once in contact with our magnetosphere, shockwaves will be created, being heard and felt. And what if they become even more charged and keep that energy because of coming in contact with dark matter, which we know very little about? Finally, guess what the charged particles in cosmic dust will most likely look like? Blue in color. They're going to be blue. It may likely look like a blue blob hurtling toward us in space, quickly engulfing the Earth. And this we've heard about from prior cultures and civilizations. Measurements taken of the black hole at the center of the Home 15A galaxy reveal that it's 40 billion times more massive than our sun. Could black holes or some other unknown celestial body or event in the nuclei of a galaxy be the creation point of this anomalous energy? And just a side note, black neutron stars were just found to exist very recently. It's more massive than any other collapsed star, yet lighter than a black hole. So what else is out there that we know nothing about, just waiting to be discovered soon? And just to put into perspective what the Earth looks like compared to our sun, so the black hole we just discussed in the last slide, again, 40 billion times larger than our sun. There's now a considerable body of evidence indicating that the nuclei of spiral galaxies periodically enter an explosive phase where they release large amounts of energy in the form of relativistic particles, most likely electrons. This means the speed they travel is comparable to the speed of light. These mega outbursts are now known to be the most energetic phenomenon known to scientists, based on scientific data collected on the Seyfert galaxies, which again is like the bright compact core with strong infrared emission. It is reasonable to infer that the center of our Milky Way galaxy spends 20% of its time in this active state, making it interesting to consider what effect explosive outbursts from the center might have on our solar system and Earth. Okay, so that other catastrophic event that potentially occurs in a cyclical nature does not have extraterrestrial origins at all. As a matter of fact, the event originates in the center of our own planet. Consider the fact that the planet Earth is very much like many other structures in the universe. From an atom to a star to a complete galaxy, everything has a nuclei that is the central structure upon what all else is built. If a star and a galaxy give off neutral matter, which explodes as it becomes energized, we're discussing such particles as photons, neutrons, and neutrinos. So why not a planet as well? This concept would make more sense for why catastrophic events occur on a somewhat set schedule. Think about what the repercussions would be if something disrupted the Earth's inner electromagnetic structure. It would be like shutting down the dynamo effect for a very short period of time, enough to cause major catastrophic events. So, with matter escaping from the inner core to that outer core in this irregular manner, there's a literal atomic explosion inside the center of the Earth. Rotation of the planet would stop for just a blink of an eye in galactic time, but it's enough to screw everything up. Consider that period maybe 12 hours or less. Unfortunately, those results would be catastrophic. A book titled The Adam and Eve Story was written back in the early 1960s by Chauncey Thomas. It discusses what would happen if this type of event took place. Chan, which is short for Chauncey, pulled from many scientists that had many different backgrounds. Some of those scientists were J. André Deluc, Georges Cuvier, Dolomieu, and Christian von Buch. he also was fond of taking from Professor Frank C. Hibben. Now, what is also very interesting about this book is all the misinformation about it. Most people have been told or believe that the book was pulled off shelves and classified by the Central Intelligence Agency. Almost every website online incorrectly states this. First, the book was never classified top secret by the CIA and removed from the public. What happened was someone filed a Freedom of Information Act on what the CIA had on Thomas. Well, his book happened to be in the file that they had, so they released it. This made people incorrectly believe it was classified. The book has always been available. It was just hard to come by, out of print. Also, Thomas added to it years later and brought out another version of the book. More than likely, Chan had requested to work for the CIA and he was being background checked, so they had his book. Now, what is interesting, and no one has really discussed this, was that someone in the CIA was updating the book or changing parts of it, adding to it or subtracting from the original. They made corrections to the book, showing that the agency was quite interested in what Chan wrote about, and at least somewhat there believed what he stated was the cause and effect for such a catastrophic event. Also interesting to note, Chan Thomas was hired by Dr. Robert M. Wood in 1966 to work for McDonnell Douglas. They hired him because he was a psychic that apparently could communicate with aliens. Pretty unbelievable, but it's legit for real. Now, some of those at McDonnell Douglas believed Chan could assist them in learning how to properly get out of Earth's orbit for a future space launch, just like UFOs. This was confirmed by Jacques Vallée and then again in 2008 in a MUFON article. Yep, this is the author Chan. The CIA believed his explanation for the geophysical mechanism that allows pole shifts to happen. When you break his work down, he was stating that Earth's crust only remains strong enough to avoid a pole shift when the Earth's magnetic field is strong. When that breaks down, the massive amount of ice weight on the poles caused the land holding that ice weight to shift and slip, pulling everything around the globe with it. I'm not going to discuss the mechanics of this being possible, since that would require 2 or 3 days with me just discussing this. And even at that point, it gets very convoluted. One other thing about Chan, between 1974 and 1993, he was basically nowhere to be found. Well, guess who his employer was at that time? Yeah, most likely the CIA. On the original version of the book, page 24 discusses where the physical North Pole was located, giving time periods in that BP before present. Again, I'm not speaking of magnetic north. I'm talking about the physical North Pole. This may be hard to believe. I still consider the implications of such a model, but when you consider the fact that if the Earth quit rotating for several hours, and this does not mean that the wind stops, it means that you have 1,000 mile per hour plus winds, followed by tsunamis that we could never fathom, followed by activations of most volcanoes, most supervolcanoes and earthquakes that could be measured. The sound coming from beneath our feet and above our heads would be deafening. The speeds of the wind would shred almost everything in its path into nothingness. 99+% of our civilization wiped out, leaving pockets of survivors in, again, another dark age, not being able to start over for hundreds of years, just trying to survive until events on the surface subside. Now, I personally believe we will hear the Earth's aching or moaning prior to an event of this nature. Sound waves coming up and out of the planet are going to be heard. I often picture and hear in my head a wind instrument of such magnitude going off that entire cities might hear strange sounds like this, giving notice or revelations of the future event. You may want to conduct your own research into reverse flux patches, outer core movement, which is through convection. And if that iron core of our planet is made from BCC iron, BCC meaning body-centered cubic, If the iron is in a body-centered cubic phase where the atomic architecture of the iron is hexagonal, especially with the amount of heat being generated and the amount of pressure the central core is under, we really may want to take Chan and his book as seriously as someone at the CIA did. These two photos show the location of the ancient Sumerian cities of Nippur on the left and Uruk on the right. I'm showing these so that you understand how difficult it is to locate ancient remains. As you can see by looking around in the photos, there seems to be nothing, extending out into the deserts of Iraq for miles. Yet a massive civilization flourished here thousands of years ago. In the book The Sumerians by Samuel Kramer, he goes on to tell his readers that no one knew about Sumerians until the mid-1800s. Nobody knew they existed. Their civilization was lost to modern-day man. Yet, eventually their culture and civilization was rediscovered. Today, we cite this civilization as being one of the oldest known to current man, and did not even realize that their discovery was recent and accidental. See, archaeologists were looking for the Assyrians mentioned in the Bible. Neither Greeks, Hebrews, or Egyptians of ancient times had any knowledge of the existence of the people or language of Sumer. It just didn't exist. The mention of Sumer had been erased from the memory of man for several thousand years. And at first, scientists and historians refused to believe that a new lost ancient civilization had been located. Again, we're talking about the mid-1800s, not long ago. Did you know that the only reason we deciphered Sumerian language and text was because we had already deciphered Semitic Akkadian, known in earlier days as Assyrian or Babylonian, which was also written in cuneiform scripts. The key to Sumerian script was found in Old Persian, an Indo-European tongue. Now let's start looking around the world and unlocking lost history and lost knowledge. Here you're looking at the Cuicuilco Pyramid in Mexico City. Definitely not the shape of pyramids that we're used to seeing. We have lost knowledge of structures and the people that populated them from 3,000 plus years back. Personally, I think it's even older. So really, how easy is it to lose historical data on the past? Well, it's very easy. Just consider the fact that we have most likely only discovered 5% or less of past civilizations buried directly below our feet. That's a low number. We're living on top of the past. The only thing that we're sure of about those that created these circular step megalithic structures you see here, and what again is now Mexico City, is that they were wiped out by a very large volcanic eruption. This is Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. It's old, but not an ancient site by any means. It's also the most visited site in all of Mexico. What I find important about this site are two things. I'll discuss the second toward the end of this presentation. The other is directly behind me here in this photo. Notice that the Maya and almost all Mesoamerican peoples were obsessed with tracking the cosmos. Their observatories looked like those that we have today. Pretty interesting fact in and of itself. This is the Great Pyramid of Cholula, Mexico. It's the largest man-made pyramid in the world, dwarfing the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramid is 1,476 feet wide and 217 feet tall. From end to end, the Great Pyramid of Cholula is equivalent to 9 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That's 4 times the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Remember, we're talking about volume, length, size, not height. It also retains the title of the largest monument ever constructed anywhere on Earth by any civilization to this day, well, that we know of. Archaeologists state that the pyramid began being built around 300 BCE, before the Common Era, and was completed in 6 stages, requiring workers from many different generations. But I believe that it's much older, or at least what's below it is much older. In June of 2016, I explored the underground shaft tunnel system that's basically off limits to the public. I learned that below the pyramid is an intricate system of tunnels and caverns that could have housed 100 or so people deep below the structure above it. The site would have offered safety from any pending dangers above ground. This includes massive amounts of devastation and destruction that could have been caused by a major catastrophe. The lower underground sections most likely were built and used even before the Great Pyramid of Cholula was built above. As a matter of fact, I believe the colossal megalithic structure above was built to honor and preserve where the ancestors had to go to survive for a lengthy period in the underworld. The Cochna stone in Scotland is 15 by 18 meters in size. It was buried back in 1964 to protect it from, well, you guessed it, us, humans. In September of 2015, it was unearthed again for 10 days by archaeologists from the University of Glasgow to verify it existed and to digitally document the large stone art. It's considered to be the finest Bronze Age cup and ring carvings in all of Europe. Its meaning to this day remains unknown. So I studied it for several months, being very interested in what it potentially means. What if we're discussing a map of prior underground habitations where people lived after a great catastrophic event occurred? I've been inside many cairns, and looking at the rock from above, I see just that. Cairn locations that may be strategically placed to match stars, planets, constellations, and other objects in the sky. Could this mean that we are looking at an earlier archaic period attempt to create an early warning system? So here are some of those cairns. These are the Clava cairns of northern Scotland. They're currently believed to be over 4,000 years old. I would put this date back even further. This area was quite possibly a stronghold for surviving the last great catastrophe that took place approximately 6,500 years ago. At first, survival would have been underground, followed by habitation placement above ground, but still on top of prior habitation sites. Much of the ground at this site is visibly raised. Just look at these photos I took. Guess what? There are many cavities below this. Then shooting back over to the Americas, here we have Mexico City National Anthropology Museum. Looks similar, what you're looking at, to what I believe are very similar to ancient Persian artifacts resembling what we've come to know as the jinn or genies, meaning the hidden ones, an ancient race of humanoids said to predate humans, and falling from the grace of God, they were sent to a different plane or dimension to exist. Maybe they were banished or sent off to another part of the world. The similarities between the Old World and the New World ancient artifacts defy what we have been taught to believe. Here again, Mexico City Anthropology Museum. Again, what I would like to relabel for them as the Jinn collection. These are currently labeled as Olmec. Remember again, the Olmec are the oldest known Mesoamerican culture civilization, and they too were not believed to have existed until around the 1920s or 30s when they were separated away from the Maya culture. Let's change direction now and focus on petroglyphs and pictographs. This is Grapevine Canyon, Nevada. Cosmic event leading to a plasma event. The cosmic event is topside with the plasma tree below. This glyph's patina shows it to be a much older glyph compared to most in the surrounding area. Here we have Parowan Gap, Utah. This has been labeled the zipper glyph, having the potential to have recorded a major cosmic event wreaking havoc on our planet. Great objects fell from the sky. The first event was followed by plasma discharges in the heavens above, reaching all the way down to the planet's surface. Time was also being kept on this rock. When or why remains unknown. This is White Tanks, Arizona. This is the star explosion in the year 1006. This is supposedly confirmed by anthropologists and archaeologists. Again, I always think that rock art is subjective. But again, if you look at enough and you're able to associate certain things in the area, it might very well be possible to associate it with an event. I added this to show that our ancestors kept track of what was going on in the sky and the important stuff they jotted down for future posterity. rock was obviously the one that was able to last through time. This very large rock art is found in the southwest state of Utah. It seems to be tracking time for a long, extensive period. From glyphs around the ticks and lines, it looks to be cosmic, plasma, and potentially earth-shaking events. It does seem to show the events being separate of one another. This page is from Ancient Arts of the Andes by Wendell Clark Bennett. Now, scientists say there was no written language used at these sites, but this small fragment that has engravings on it clearly look like Olmec and Maya glyph writing. But remember, we're discussing locations and finds in South America, not in the area that's now Mexico. Same book, Ancient Arts of the Andes by Wendell Clark Bennett. The glyph, again, look to have order, direction, and meaning. They look like other ancient glyph writing from around the world that is yet to be deciphered. The Atacamino were a culture within the Inca period, possibly slightly older. Their artifacts were very similar to those found at Tiwanaku. So maybe they were the descendants of those ancient people found at Tiwanaku. Yes, again, same book, Ancient Art of the Andes. Look at what Wendell Clark Bennett is describing. It's a tapestry. The tapestry is only being considered representational art. Well, let me show you what this page in Bennett's book is discussing, which are ancient South American tapestry from the Tiwanaku areas. These are the ancient tapestry. Here's an enlarged view that I'll show you. So really, take a moment to look at what you're seeing here in this slide. It's a record, not an overall decorative art pattern. Look closely at the symbols. They are identical to glyphs in ancient languages from around the world. They are in set patterns with repeating symbols showing they meet the definition of written language. We just can't translate or decipher the meaning. And just quickly, I want you to truly understand how important it is to recognize that part of the problem with information dissemination lies with the inexperienced, the casual history buff, the occasional internet searcher who tends to trust the opinions of so-called professionals without checking their reasoning and how their facts are acquired, researched, and distributed. Take, for example, this tapestry work that is sometimes known as tokapu. During the time of the Inca, the ruling class wore this type of tapestry or clothing. Along came the historians. Let's not give those people that much credit. Instead, we'll call them chroniclers. They saw this type of dress being used by the elite and decided that this clothing and their patterns would represent Inca nobility. Suddenly, the historical data presented on the tapestry becomes more about quality and the fabric of the work. This giving little thought to the design, which really turns out to have a literal meaning. Because of this, the same belief system continues to be used even up until today, with one professor teaching the next generation the same incorrect information. Here we have Chihuacan. It's a Mexico archaeological site located on the Costa Grande of the Mexican state of Guerrero, near the small town of La Soledad de Maciel and the larger town of Zihuatanejo. The name Chihuacan means place where people control eternity. The site and pyramid are over 3,000 years old. One of the cultures known to have occupied the location are the Cuitlatecos. 20 years ago, archaeologists stated there were no large sites and no large past cultures living on this side of Mexico. Yet now, here we have a site that's over 10 square miles in size. The pyramid in the photo is unique to say the least. It's completely covered in a clay that has lasted thousands of years, most likely longer than 3,000. The clay also caused quick plant growth and alluvia coverage to bury the pyramid after the site was abandoned long ago. If you know anything about clay, it only seems to last for a short period of time, maybe around a decade. Many have attempted to recreate the clay on this pyramid. All attempts to date have failed. So we are aware that the area of Chihuacan was devastated not once but twice by extremely large tsunamis The stairs on the left enter the inner part of the pyramid. They've purposely not been excavated to keep people from entering and taking artifacts that may be contained within the pyramid. The right shows damage to the pyramid that was recently done when the archaeologists in charge of the excavation decided to use dynamite to remove soil, shrubs, and debris from on top of the pyramid. Brilliant, right? Okay, this is the top of the pyramid structure. There's a small step pyramid site in the rear and this square build directly in the center of the pyramid. This square is incredibly important. As a matter of fact, 4 other structures on top of hillsides and mountains, all within a 25-mile radius, precisely line up with this square build, which is on the very top. It's not the structure on top that's important, it's what's below it. There must be some sort of energy source below that can somehow, but unknown to us, be accessed. The reason why I believe this is that my wife and I were shown multiple cell phone photos from different people of UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, that was directly above this square. We were also shown a cell phone photo of what looked to be this super deep, rich purple energy coming up from all 4 sides of the square and going directly up into the air. The energy was so rich in color that it looked like purple velvet drapes coming up out of the ground. I'm in the process of still trying to get pics of that purple energy. My point, of course, to all of this is that we have lost information and that historical data on the energy, the technology, the people, and possibly other species from our distant past. Many megalithic structures seem to be directly attached now to UFO phenomenon, and we do not know the reason why this is. Only 1% of the site has been excavated. Look what's right next door, another pyramid covered by hundreds, if not thousands of years of jungle growth. I want to stress again, just because we learn about one culture at an ancient site does not mean that that was the only culture at the site. Earlier cultures or civilizations could easily have been forgotten about, their artifacts and history accidentally blended in with more recent occupation of the sites. This was shown extensively earlier in South America. This causes errors in correct dating of artifacts and causes errors in who created them. It wreaks havoc with creating a proper timeline of when the site was occupied and by whom. And I'm not even going to go into what I think about carbon-14 dating and how off it is. So this was found at Shiwakan. Looks Olmec or even Proto-Olmec. So what the hell were the Olmec doing on the Pacific coast of Mesoamerica? Same place, Shiwakan. Again, this artifact looks the pre-Olmec, but we're going to label it Olmec. Look at the unique head structure and the symbol embedded at the top. So this stuff is not supposed to be here. It's not supposed to exist in this area. But here it is. I really don't know what to call this one. I just thought it was extremely unique. The anthropologist whom my wife and I talked to for quite some time in the back office labeled it anthropomorphic. Obviously it is, resembling humanoid form, that's all. He seems to feel that it represented maternity, but look at it. Sure as heck does not look like any pregnant human I know. This one is from the Gilcrease Museum, which by the way is in Oklahoma. It's Hacha style, Veracruz, Mexico, labeled as, and I'm telling you exactly what I saw. Label states older than most things, but unknown date. Very interesting subject matter. So again, we're missing history. This again is Gilcrease Museum. Again, has stumped all anthropologists. It is labeled as unknown location of origin, unknown type of culture, and listed as ancient. Gilcrease Museum, Nayarit female 300 BCE. I sure as heck don't know a female that looks like this. Here again from one of my favorite books for this, it's Ancient Arts of the Andes, again Wendell Clark Bennett. The Mochica are pre-Inca, out of the country of Peru, stated to be around 300 AD to 1200, but look at what they were seeing and attempting to memorialize. Here again, possible that this is from Guerrero, Mexico. It is listed as unknown subject matter, unknown date, and style as questionable because they have no clue. At least they didn't try making crap up this time. So look, we discussed 2 of 4 potential catastrophic events that may very well have taken place, with hints and remnants of historical data still available, showing these may have occurred in the distant past. I showed you that there are objects, artifacts, oral tradition, myths, megalithic structures, and other anomalous items pointing toward things in our distant past having been very different from what we have been taught and have been told by the experts, those scientists working for government and universities around the world. I showed specific examples I have researched both through on-the-ground investigation and many hours of combing through books and other forms of recorded historical data. I'm personally open to alternative beliefs about the past. I've spent years in search of anomalous energy zones, lost cultures, and civilizations. Here we have from Africa, Og the Giant, that seems to be attached to every culture and civilization being our original god or one of our gods or deities, if you're willing to believe that. I hope this was informative, everyone. Please, hit the thumbs up, like button for me. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take care. Thanks.